loud. And then I'm going to get on shared screen. So other people will be joining us, I'm sure, and we'll just go with that.
Now, when my daughter comes out from her class, I will be at best muting, at worst stepping out until I get home, and then I'll get back on.
Okay. All right. Because I have your chart ready to go. You saw that.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about, I thought that was a perfect timing. Tomorrow will be the winter solstice at 11:28 a.m. It is a ritual I always find particularly powerful and meaningful. And I thought that would be a great focus for what we're talking on. In these big events, it's always good to check out your astrological chart and see how the energy is impacting your particular planetary configuration, because that's kind of the story we grew up with. So here is what I did after I came home from clients. This is what the labyrinth looked like tonight. It was beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
There was a little slim crescent of a moon, because the new moon was on Sunday. So we're in that place. And then I was able to take one of the candles, and usually there's lots of wind out there, but it managed to stay there. So I was really glad I captured a photo. For those of you who are not seeing it on Facebook, that's what it looks like. So, we've been talking a lot about building the vessel, and this particular solstice represents the completion of the work of the lower vehicle. So the lower mind, the emotional mind, and the physical mind and body. And so when that has become perfected, and the sign that comes before Capricorn is Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is considered to be the archer with one-pointed vision. So this is the disciple who is ready to take initiation. So that's Sagittarius. Then we get to Capricorn, and it is called the gate of initiation. So that represents moving into this higher experience, and initiation is bringing the light down. So that's what makes this particularly winter solstice so potent. So we have the other one, which is Cancer. And so the doorway of Capricorn is
downstairs.
It is the opposite gate. So Cancer in July is called the gate of incarnation. And we incarnate into the deepest material existence in Cancer. So one of our challenges in this whole journey is to hold consciousness and not be totally absorbed by matter, by the physical world. So Capricorn represents the return of the light. So in Rudolf Steiner's work in anthroposophy, they often talked about how wonderful this time of year is, because as everything goes back into the earth, as everything dies and all the energies go back into the earth, what we have is more and more light. We have more and more energy available, celestial energy available, for a lack of a better term. And that we need to use it. This is a great time to do spiritual practice, spiritual study, to kind of pull inward, be reflective, be creative in that ethereal dimension. Whereas when we are in Cancer, in the height of material existence, it's the middle of July, it's hot, everything's full bloom. Matter of fact, it's beyond full bloom, and we're in the fleshiness of Cancer. So Capricorn is the initiation, and here comes right out of a book called Esoteric Astrology by Alice Bailey. All souls come into incarnation in the sign Cancer. By this I mean that the first human incarnation was always taken in the sign which has been recognized down the ages as the doorway into life of those who must know death. Because we're on this cycle of reincarnation, because we have physical manifestation, we experience death. Just as the constellation Capricorn is ever regarded as another door and is called esoterically the doorway into life for those who know not death. So that's what this transcendence means, and there's lots of reference to in all the spiritual literature. But this is when we are less tied to the body, and the body becomes more of a choice than the center of our experience. And as ages slip away and man passes in and out of signs, the particular sign being determined by the nature of the personality ray, which changes from life to life. In each sign, he learns the needed lessons, broadens his horizon, integrates his personality, and begins to sense the conditioning soul, and then discovers his essential duality. So that's what Capricorn's about, and all that's very esoteric. And if you want to read even more esoteric stuff, I've given you the link to the page that I took that from. It's a great treasure trove that I have discovered where they have a lot of Alice Bailey work. So you may remember this from a previous class. This is the astrologer's cheat sheet. And if you're not using astrology a lot, it can feel overwhelming, and it can be, hi, Noelle. Let's just go back for Noelle's benefit to talk about why we are here at Capricorn.
Sorry.
So we have Leslie here, who you've met, and Steph, I think you've been on a Zoom call with.
Hello, Steph. Hi, Leslie.
Yeah, we got lots of life happening here. Leslie's in the car. Her daughter's at a viola lesson.
Oh, good place to be. What a thing to do while you're waiting for the viola lesson. I love it.
I said I'll be in and out once I have to drive her home, but that's good.
So just in case you didn't see this, Noelle, this is the ritual I did tonight in the labyrinth. So this is the wonderful solstice evening that we're having tonight. And what I was just saying is this is the time when all the energy pulls back into the earth, and spiritual energy is actually more available. So you have until 11:28 tomorrow to do something, and I didn't say this before, this is a great time to do a ritual. This is a great time to do a ritual specifically about what you'd like to die and what you'd like to invoke. Because it is the season and it's the darkest time, and I don't know how the weekend was for you guys, but the weekend was oppressive for me because we were on the dark side of the new moon and we were just coming to the winter solstice.
I will tell you, Pamela, I've been sleeping many, many hours and barely able to function for like 4 hours a day.
Yeah, that's kind of where that energy goes. That's, the complete energy, and you've had a lot of energy out in the world for the last many months, Noelle. So this is the natural return process. That's what it's all about, is returning back and finding that which got lost when we went out in the world. So Capricorn is when we have completed building the lower vessel and are now ready for initiation. Initiation happens and the light comes down into the vessel, and the vessel does not shatter. So that's what it's about. This is the doorway of Capricorn, which is called the Gate of Initiation. And it marks a willing in Sagittarius. The disciple makes the choice to be an initiate and puts the arrow of intention in his bow and shoots it forth into the void, and the void responds in Capricorn with initiation and the light. So more of that can be found on the link that I put there. And that brings us to this reminder of, I like to teach astrology as the stage, the set, and the actors. So we have the 12 houses, which is where the action takes place, and each house is defined as having key activities. We start here in the first one, which is the personality, the physical body, and earthly environments. Second one is usually considered money and possessions. Third is communication, lower mind, siblings, brothers and sisters. Fourth is home and family, and the unconscious past, because it's natively Cancer, and Cancer is about the unconscious. Fifth is pleasure, social life, children, creativity. And it is Leo, so it's full of that energy, is its natural state. Sixth is service, health, and duty. So it's Virgo, that's very Virgo energy. Seventh house is partnership, identification with others, counseling, open enemies. It often has a lot to do with contracts, like marital contracts, business contracts, and things that happen with that. 8 is death, instinct, sexuality, regeneration, other people's money. It's often considered its polar opposite is over here in the personal money house. So this is considered to be other people's money. Other people's money, my money down here in the second house, other people's money. Ninth house, long trips, adventure, higher mind, philosophy, religion. So that is the house of Sagittarius. And then Capricorn, career, status, reputation, authorities, destiny. So 10 is usually considered the career house. 11, friends, groups, future wishes, goals. And then 12 is usually what is hidden to us, our karmic past, the things that are meant to be dealt with in the storehouse of all of that. So that's the houses where things take place. And then, of course, we have the planets, and the planets are in signs. So up here at the top, you see here are the symbols, and I'll mention them as we go through the charts. Here are the symbols for the planets, and we won't talk about North Node and South Node. And then the planets, and then signs are around the wheel, and we talked about what those are. So Libra, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn. So everybody got that? So here's what the solstice looked like. This is the chart for the solstice. And the first thing I noticed was there's a lot of energy in the upper houses. As a matter of fact, all the energy is concentrated, which puts it out in the world. It's not personal. So what you know, just as a chart for the event here in the Northeast. And the other thing I did not realize is that Saturn, so we go up here, this circle is the sun, and this is Saturn. And they're exactly conjunct. And at 0 degrees. Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, which makes it a double whammy. And Saturn is heavy energy. It is the lessons that have to be learned. A number of you are in the last years of your second Saturn cycle, so that makes it pretty heavy. And then, so that was the biggest thing, and Pluto was still also in Capricorn, which is making it very heavy. So that's what I saw when I looked at the overall chart. We also have Mars and Jupiter in kind of a wide conjunction. So that's meaningful, but we won't go into that. By the way, I'm also learning how to do Vedic astrology. So I'm going to redo all of your charts in Vedic, and I just ordered some books and I bought the software, so I'm good to go. So this is me. This is me, and you know, one of the things I was taught in my training, particularly as an esoteric astrologer, is that we need to work with our own chart for years before we work with anybody else's, and work with it by looking at the transits and by looking at what that means, so we can match the events in the heavens with our actual experience in our life. So we get those connections, much like the tarot card, and I know a number of you have already learned this. Remember I said that the cards will teach you, and you know, if you just work with the cards enough, they'll teach you what they mean. And that will be your unique interpretation of what they mean. You can read a book, you can go online and hear the general interpretations, but the one that is most significant is the one that comes from your own readings. Well, did I mention pendulums the last time?
No.
No. Staff, have you ever worked with a pendulum? Okay, I want to talk about that. Okay, so I thought I had, but I just imagined it. So everybody should have a pendulum, and you can order them online, and they're very handy. So that's a pendulum. This is smoky quartz pendulum. I have 4 or 5 of them, and you want it to be suspended so it floats freely. And these are used for divination. So it's a great way to ask. You can only ask yes or no questions, which will teach you to get pretty specific about things. I use it to determine what supplements to take each day, or what essential oils to take, or what foods to eat. So you start by asking it to show you what yes looks like, and then what no looks like. So you might think I'm moving this, but I'm not. Show me yes.
Pamela, what's the stone?
It is smoky quartz. So for me, north-south is yes, east-west is no. And show me what don't want to answer is. And it will go in a circle. Or the other thing it will do is wrong question. Show me what wrong question looks like. And for me, that becomes a clockwise circle. So Steph is already actively working as a psychic, but for those of you who would like to develop your intuition more, this is a great way to start. Because what will happen, I actually started with this in the Ouija board when I was 19. And I had the same experience that Jane Roberts talks about, is pretty soon I didn't need either one of them. I just started hearing the answers. So as Wisdom School members, I thought it would be good to tell you that. So I'm looking at my chart, and the first thing I see in my chart is this whole event of the solstice, which is 0 degrees Capricorn, the sun at 0 degrees Capricorn, is happening in my 7th house. My 7th house has been getting badly beaten for about 8 or 9 years, because up here is Pluto. And when you have a Pluto transit, it really takes you into the hells. Because that's the what Pluto is about. Pluto is the Persephone mystery. And some of you may remember this story, but Persephone is the young maiden, the daughter of Demeter. And Demeter, loved her daughter, but wanted to keep her a maiden and keep her innocent. And one day Persephone was out in the fields picking herbs or flowers, and she was taken away by the evil prince of Hades, who took her down into the hells, into the descent. And Demeter made all the life go out of the world. She raged, she wept, nobody could find her daughter. And finally they realized that they better find their daughter, or else Demeter was never going to let anything grow again. So I believe it was Hermes, Mercury, went down into the hells and got her out. But unfortunately, she had just eaten 6 seeds of the pomegranate, which meant that she needed to descend into hell for 6 months each year. So that's the other part of this myth about the winter and the summer, coming out of Hades and going into Hades. The feminist revisionist version of the myth, which some of you will appreciate, was that Demeter wanted to keep her daughter innocent and as a maiden, and Persephone wanted sexual experience. So she sought out the bad boy, Prince of Hades, knowing full well that he would take her into initiation, and it was a sexual initiation. So that's one of the myths. So when Pluto shows up in a big transit in your chart, it means you're getting yourself kicked. And then, as I said, Saturn is right next to the sun.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Pamela. Shouldn't that mean that you're getting a lot of sex?
That's one way, but into the hells is metaphorical.
Okay.
So whatever your hells are, by the way, Noelle, thank you, but I've probably had enough sex for my life and 4 or 5 other people's. So, I'm not ever going to be on a shortage of that. Yeah, I was the maiden who made that choice when she was 17, and I kept following those Prince of Hades for a long time. But thank you for sharing. So that's kind of the big lesson for me, is the heaviness that I feel in this area of contracts. So I was waiting to have my 2818 contract with Ford, and it's a new vendor, and I wasn't sure I was going to get hired by the new vendor, although it was pretty likely. And they have all kinds of language in the contract, which is pretty offensive. So many of us are wondering if we're going to take the contract. That's very typical of what Saturn, Sun in the 7th house would look like. So it was one of those moments that maybe, you got to go, Leslie?
I gotta go, and I'll be back when I get home.
Okay.
Thanks.
See you soon. Bye. We won't talk about you until you come back.
Okay, great. Bye-bye.
All right. So that gives me an explanation for some of the heaviness I felt in that house of contracts. When I had the original transit of Pluto here, everything in my life blew up. You know, my marriage, my contracts, my professional relationships just blew up. And that's very much Pluto going through that house and disrupting everything. So that was the most significant thing that stood out to me, that it's in the 7th house, it's in Capricorn. I still have lovely Pluto transiting the 8th house, which is what it rules, and it's about other people's money, and I still have the complex situation with my dad. So stay tuned. So that's me. See who's up next.
Was there anything good about your chart?
Well, there's always good stuff. I've just come out of a lovely time of Jupiter. Jupiter is down here in Scorpio. And when it was conjunct, one of the big conjunctions in my chart, when it was transiting this conjunction, that's my moon Neptune, which is all my psychic stuff. And Jupiter, which is the great expansive, this is sometimes called the good father, the beneficent God, is the one that shines on us, and we can get very expanded, philosophical. There's always a temptation to grandiosity there. And so, and the moon Neptune can be illusion, or it can be psychism, or it can be energy work. When Jupiter was transiting, that was about when I went to the Dawn of Eden course at Omega and started opening that door. It wasn't about, it was exactly when. And so when I looked at my chart, I said, oh, that explains why. So that's been a fun ride. So that's kind of the only interesting stuff that I'm seeing right now.
Can I ask a question about that?
You always can ask questions.
So it was lined up with, I don't remember the terms you used. It was lined up before, around the time that you went to the Dawn of Eden class. And what does it mean now with regards to that experience, now that it's no longer lined up, now that it's in your 6th house?
I'm having a slightly different view of that body of work. And I'm learning some things about what might be the appropriate body of work for me. And that in fact, it's too intuitive for me. Even though my wonderful intuitive moon Neptune loved it in July.
Yeah.
Loved it in August and loved it in September. What I really want, hey Lisa.
Hi.
What I really want to do now is study things that have much more gravitas, that have much more lineage. So I'm probably, if I can get into it, going to do the Ayurvedic program at Kripalu, the Kripalu School of Ayurveda. So, because what I realized from doing this is they're talking about the what and how of these techniques, but it's uncoupled from the why. And I need to really work with the spiritual systems behind it. That's just my nature. So that was a great question, Noelle. I hadn't really thought it through, but Jupiter made all of that so expansive. Yeah. And Jupiter shines like a big rosy glow. So it makes whatever it's transiting look wonderfully optimistic. And it's not that it isn't, it's just that that's like one end of the polar extreme. Saturn, when it transits everything, makes it look dark and gloomy and difficult. So, reality is somewhere between those two poles. So that's me. Who's that? I'm blocked here. I can't see.
This is me.
Me, meaning?
Noelle.
Noelle. Okay, Noelle, here you go. Well, we're coming up on your birthday.
Notice my 11th house is empty.
That's
my 4th house.
Bank account feeling? Yeah. Well, let's go to your natural 2nd house. You've got Uranus here. Uranus is genius, but it's quirky, it's eccentric, but it also means that things rapidly appear and rapidly disappear. It's very atomic energy kind of, that's what it rules. It rules that type of energy. So so in the world of financial affairs, this would say that you can manifest amazing things and have them disappear just as quickly.
Great.
It's not about permanence. So you should not really be looking for something in that area that is very Saturn, very solid, or even Mars or Jupiter.
What's the second house? Second house
is your money.
My money. Okay.
Your money. Your fourth house is family. And it's empty. And I think we talked about this before, but your 10th house has the moon in it. 10th house is work. So this transit, this solstice, this is what happens when you've been up since 4:30, is happening in your 6th house. Now you have a full 6th house. Your natal sun is in the 6th house, and your Mercury, which is your mind, your lower mind, and your sun is your personality, and then your Jupiter, that great positive beneficent self, is in your 6th house. 6th house is the house of service. And Lisa, when we get to yours, you're going to see big things happening in your house of service, which makes so much sense. So that's where a lot of your energy is, and it's being energized right now by this solstice. And the fact that Saturn's been transiting it, so it also has made it heavy. Saturn always means the lessons we are supposed to learn. You know, this is the end of the 9 sacred planets, and we're supposed to cultivate all the wisdom we can in Saturn and kind of wrap it up and be ready for a new cycle. So go ahead.
For service and learning lessons, or in
Yeah.
heavy yeah.
And then that's going to take you into your 2nd Saturn return, which is impending. How old are you now?
I'll be 57 this week. Next week.
Yeah. So you're coming right up on that. I think I told you exactly when it was, but that's when Saturn here connects with the Saturn of your birth chart. So you know, this happiness you feel is you're finishing a cycle. You're finishing a 28-year cycle. And I'll look up because I do have your Saturn return. So you're right at the end of it. And I know I sent you some stuff a year ago about this. So what is the last part of the Saturn cycle? So you're really reaping all that has been sowed in 30 years. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be finished so that you can launch a new beginning. And your new beginning happens I think it's within the year, when Saturn moves beyond the natal Saturn. And so that's what's going to happen there.
I see. So I should be watching for that. Got it.
Well, you should feel a sense of urgency around wrapping things up.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, because you really are ending some pretty big chapters. One as a mother. You know, it's that stage of life. You know, your work in the world, your work in the family, your work, kind of the mature adult stuff. You're now getting to move into the 3rd cycle, which is the one I'm in and have been in for 10 years, which is the cycle of transpersonal growth. People who don't do that with the 3rd cycle often die, and they don't do well, because we're really meant to move on to things greater than ourselves.
Well, and you just described the last year.
Yeah.
It's been totally chaotic about that. So it makes a lot of sense. So can I ask about I don't want to belabor mine, but in the Capricorn house, what is that in the top left there?
The top left?
Up in isn't Capricorn 10?
That's its native ruler. For you, it's not. It's between Taurus and Gemini.
Oh.
Actually, between Pisces and Taurus. So you've got a very big 10th house. And 10th house is career. So this is career. So, you know, it's more important to know what the house is about and what's taking place there.
Yeah.
You've also got Mars in Scorpio, which is a very intense energy for Mars, getting pretty close to Jupiter. So that can get some activity going, and it's going to get going in your house of creativity.
Okay.
That's your 5th house, where your native Neptune is. So it's coming up. Your native Neptune is 10 degrees of Scorpio, and Mars is at 7. So it's moving into position to be directly opposite, directly conjunct. And so that ought to get some pretty interesting. Neptune is about the watery depths. So psychic, intuitive, things like that. So Jupiter is just past it, which should have made you feel very expansive intuitively in your creativity. So just ponder on that.
I am. I'm especially, before you move on, I'm especially concerned that my family house and the 11th house are empty.
Well, remember that this is karmic. So it can often represent work you've already done that wasn't necessary as a focus in this lifetime. You know, pretty much everybody has some empty houses. And so, you know, the full houses mean this is what you incarnated to work on. So, you know, if you look at it, you have 3 pretty significant planets in your 6th house. I would say that service would be significant in this lifetime's plan.
Got it.
Okay.
Yes.
Whose chart is this? Oh, this is Andrea. Who is this?
Allison.
Allison. Who is this?
Martha.
Martha. She's not here yet. She's supposed to be here.
Deb.
Who's that?
Deb.
Deb? Yeah, I'm just going to say this. I don't think she would mind. She just had knee replacement surgery yesterday. Capricorn rules the knees.
Yeah.
Saturn rules the bones. Had I looked at her chart before she was going for the surgery, I might have suggested not doing it right now.
Really?
Yeah, and let me show you why. So the 6th house is also health. And she's got this kick-ass thing going on with the winter solstice and Saturn and Pluto in her 6th house. Pluto is a house of death and dying. So Pluto is not going to move out of her. What did I just do? Did I go forward or back? Yeah. Pluto is not going to move out of that house for her for quite a while. When she's feeling better and, you know, ready to hear this, I'll tell her that, because Pluto is kind of taking her into the hells in the area of health and its service. So, you know, that's meaningful. It's also natively where her moon and Jupiter sit. And I've known her for 30 years. We've been colleagues and friends for that long. And in Capricorn, so she's got 2 pretty significant planets that are also being affected by these transits. Everything's just coming up on those. So in the next few months, maybe 18 months to 2 years, she's probably going to experience some things of intensity just because there's so much activity going on there. Now the sun will move pretty quickly. The sun, you know, takes a month to move through a sign. Saturn takes 28 years to go around the whole wheel. So that's a couple of years in each sign. Pluto takes, Pluto takes 104 years to go around the whole chart. So, you know, in one lifetime, you're probably not going to experience all the Pluto will not be in all your houses. So once again, it's karmic. You know, where it is when you're born is where you're likely to be taken into the hells. And that would probably only represent 2/3 of the houses, depending on his natal position. So that's kind of one of those things that, you know, had I seen this, I might have at least asked her some questions. I'm not a horary astrologer, so that would not be, you know, that's people who pick auspicious dates for things. It's very big in Chinese and Indian culture. Who is this? Steph, this is you. I saw Perth and then I knew it was you. So my dear, we've got quite a few people with a full 6th house. Lisa is another one. I remember looking at that and going, this is interesting. So yes, this is all going on in your house of service and in service, health, duty. So you have your Venus there right now, you have the Sun, you have Saturn. Your Pluto is going through your 7th house, so it's no surprise you've had difficulty with contracts, employment contracts, work contracts. I don't know how long it's been there. I don't remember how long it's been since you've been divorced, but it can also affect, you know, marital contracts.
Mm.
child custody things,
Mm.
you know, that would be there. And it's going to be a long time before it leaves the 7th house.
Oh, great.
Well, you have a pretty large 7th house, you know, from Capricorn to Aquarius. And it's going to take a while. I hear you. It's been going through mine a lot. And, you know, this Mars, Jupiter is not setting anything off for you. Yeah, I would just say that continue to use that approach of service that you're using to your marketing. You know, that in creating this course, it's really a service to people who are underserved.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what a woman did who, I can't remember what it was, but she DIY websites.
Mm-hmm.
She created a course where she helped artists. She specialized in artists
Yeah.
so they could make their own websites, so that they could have the website that matched their own vision.
Mm-hmm.
And she used WordPress and she supported everybody. Well, prior to that, she'd been a hospital administrator.
Mm.
You know, her background was she had a master's degree in public health, but photography was her gig. She was a hobbyist. So she took her hobby and her own desire to build a website and then turned it into service to others. And she ran it for a long time. She also ran, she curated art, mostly crafts. And she had a website where every day new art was posted. And it went on for, I think she did it for nearly 10 years. So that was a service. That was not fee paid. So anything else you're looking at your chart that kind of speaks to you? You have a bunch of stuff. You know, it's no wonder that you're psychic. Over here in the 12th house, your sun is in the 12th, and your Venus is in the 12th, and your Mercury's in the 12th. So things in the 12th house are karmic. They can be called karmic undoing. They can be the things that are hidden to us. They can be the things that we really have to struggle to manifest and bring forth. So you have your sun there, and the sun is the self or the personality. So I also have my sun in the 12th house. So it's been very hard for me to go public. It's been very hard for me to move into a public space. I've done it, you know, and I did it for a long time, but it was never easy, and it's never anything that I sought out. Having a sun in the 12th house means you're actually pretty inward at a psychic level. So, you know, wherever your personality shows up, so yourself, let's go back here. Noelle, is this you, Noelle? No.
I was just trying to find that.
Yeah, let's just see if I can move this down. I've got that one of the things. Okay, that's Deb.
That's Deb.
Yeah. I gotta get my screen back.
Steph, it looks like yours and mine are very similar.
Yeah, I hope I did them correctly.
That's me.
Yeah. So your sun is in the 6th house, Noelle. So that means your sun's this round with a dot in it.
Oh, okay.
It's in the 6th house. So your sense of self is going to come from service.
Jesus.
Sorry.
Well, I'm just curious because I noticed when I was back, sorry. Both Steph and I have Mars just passed in the 7th house, just in the 6th house. Does that mean it was in the 6th house before?
Does that say again? I didn't understand that.
Was Pluto in the 6th house before?
Yeah, Pluto was in your 6th house. It just moved into your 7th house. I actually could calculate when that was. I think I gave you a list of all the transits sometime last year, and I can rerun it so you can see exactly what you did. Yeah.
It's only starting, I will confess that it's only starting to click now.
It takes forever. Astrology is very complex. It takes forever.
Yeah.
You both did have this Mars Jupiter in the 5th house. So let me go forward to Steph. So you've got Mars and Jupiter in your 4th house, which is family. So, you know, Mars is the masculine energy. that gets everything energized, and it's in Scorpio, so it really energizes. And Jupiter is, the great benevolent father. So it's very expansive, it's very philosophical, it's can be grandiose in the 4th house. Lisa, let's talk about you. So what's interesting is this is what I call a cram-packed 6th house. Almost your whole freaking chart is in the 6th house natally. So that means you incarnated with Pluto, Mercury, Sun, Uranus, and Venus in your 6th house. The house of service, the house of duty. So, big stuff. Now, this is interesting that this particular solstice with Saturn is taking place in your 8th house. So the intensity of this moment is in your 8th house. And the 8th house is death, dying, and other people's money. So, I tell you these things like I tell you what the tarot cards mean, and then you get to apply it to your personal history. I'm not going to presume to do that, but if I give you enough coded information, you may be able to make the links. Now you, Lisa, have Pluto in the 9th house. The 9th house is higher learning. So in having Pluto, I think you came on after we talked about Pluto takes us into the hells. So hells means transformation. Hells means the descent into the underworld so we can come back out reborn. So it's a stripping away. There's a wonderful Jungian book called The Descent of Inanna. And it's about the journey of initiation that we take when we descend into the underworld. So this stuff, I suspect, Lisa, all of the yoga that you've been studying and all these other things, and your yeah, go ahead and say it for me because I'll not be able to. And your philosophical counseling, all that, is really the manifestation of Pluto in your 9th house. That's how it's taking place for you, that you were on a course that you had charted as a young woman that made all the sense in the world, was very logical, and then the Prince of Hades came out from underneath the underworld, which I'm so glad I asked this story recently, and the next thing you know, you're going to a yoga workshop because your back hurts, and 4 years later, you're yoga teacher trained, yoga therapist trained, and now you're headed off to Rolfing School. So I would think that that's a very good textbook case of what Pluto in the 9th house might look like. What do you think?
Oh, I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. You think that tells a story that might match what you've been living?
Yeah. And what's 2, 3, and 5, and there's nothing in there?
Okay, it's like I said with Noel, it's karmic. So where we incarnate with planets is where we are in this lifetime doing our work. It's the content of this life, which means that other areas have been covered in other lives. Not everything is going to happen at once. And the big stuff we always look at, the sun is your personality. And so that's right here. So that's your sense of self. Mercury is your lower mind. Pluto, we talked about this, your native Pluto, and that was in your 6th house. So you incarnated with a heaviness around the work that you would do. It also means if you have Pluto in any house, it means in that house you can go deep. So you have the capacity to go deep wherever Pluto shows up. Whether you do or not is choice. And then you have Uranus, and Uranus is like, well, it's in your 2nd house. Uranus is the genius, the nuclear energy, it's fission, it's things appearing suddenly and disappearing suddenly. It's just very sparkly energy. So that's also in your 6th house. So you will bring a liveliness to this service that might not be there without that, or an eccentricity because of, Uranus is also the planet of eccentricity. And then your love life is there. And they're all in Libra, which makes them very lovely and very sweet. It is the higher level of love. So Taurus is the possessive level of love. Libra is the artist love. So that's what's going on there. And you have Mars in your 10th house, which would explain why you've been able to be aggressive career-wise. Mars is your masculine energy. Wherever Mars shows up, you're going to be able to access that unless it is conjunct a planet that disarms it. But that's not going on in your chart.
And what's the 10th house?
And what's the what?
10th house.
The 10th house is vocation, work.
Okay.
And your moon is in the 12th house. I think there was a song that said that. The moon is in the 12th house, the age of Aquarius. I won't sing. It's not my thing. So your moon is in the 12th house. So your feminine nature is hidden.
That's
Appreciate that. I thought you'd appreciate that.
I love that laugh. That was great.
That was a good. Okay, and what the lunar is actually the old feminine. So Venus, which is this lovely planet right here, the female symbol, is kind of the more maidenly young female energy that we often, it's the Empress, the 3 in the major arcana. So it is that kind of abundant springtime maiden, who did that, Botticelli kind of femaleness. Lunar is the old mother. Now, another way I could interpret this, Lisa, is that your mother lives in your unconscious. The 12th house is often seen as the unconscious. It's better than the sun in the 12th house because that means I live in my unconscious. So coming to consciousness has been challenging.
So can I just ask a question about that again, Pamela? So
Sure.
the 12th house is where things are hidden,
Yep.
things that you're working on, or
Karmic or yeah. And the task is, see, the 12th house is what is right before the first house, and this is your ascendant, this threshold that we cross. That's like dawn. That's like dawn. So the 12th house is the darkest time right before the dawn.
and the speed that things move through these houses is dependent on which thing it is.
It's depending on the planet. Each planet has a different rate. Like Mercury goes very fast, Venus goes very fast, the moon goes very fast, the sun goes very fast.
Moving. How often does the moon do a full
Well, the
circle?
moon does the full circle every 28 days.
Every 28 days.
So every 2.5 days, the moon changes signs.
Okay.
So, I had a 2-year practice where I did a tarot card reading and changed the cards every 2.5 days. So it was a 12-house spread. So in a month, I would cover all 12 houses. And so when I would move to the next house, and then it would be revealed some information about that house. So that's it. And I did it with 2 decks. So I could look at 2 levels of meaning. One could consider that inner and outer. What's going on in my inner life, what's going on in my outer life. It's
So
a nice reading process.
Mars is is the planet of energy. And
Yeah,
Lisa,
Mars is masculine energy. So right now, and this is also great. This is what I saw, Lisa, that I didn't say. I forgot about. See, your Mars is right here. It's in Scorpio. Mars moves pretty fast. I think Mars takes 2 years to do the full cycle. So for the last couple of years, your Mars has been kicking off everything. And Mars is aggressive forward movement energy, particularly when it's in Scorpio right now. But all along, it's been moving that way. So that's why you have had kind of this urge after urge after urge to move forward, because it's just been going through your very full 6th house.
And then, so it's going to get to the 7th house?
It is. Yeah, pretty soon.
And then what's the 7th?
7th house is contractual relationships.
Oh.
So if I were going to be be psychic, I would say that job would have blown up anyway, because Mars would have hit that and that job would have blown up.
So Pamela, just for edification purposes of clarification, I'm sorry to do this to you. The inner circle is
You. The inner circle, sorry, I should have said that, Noel. So the inner circle is you. See, the inner wheel is your chart up here.
yeah.
Outer wheel is the events happening in the world right now, in the celestial
Yeah.
world now. Yeah, thank you. I should have said that. I did.
So Lisa, your Mars inner wheel is in the 10th house. That makes 4, and the moon is in the 12th house, so it's hidden. Got it.
And that's why she can be aggressive career-wise. And Lisa's a project manager.
Yeah.
So Noel, you've got some similar background, so you would
I'm
relate.
going back to look at mine while you're thinking about it. So
So when I see that, I say, well, that makes a lot of sense with the work she's done in the world. Because it's in her house of vocation and it's Mars, which means she can access masculine energy. And we discussed this thing about being trained as an industrial engineer, project management is very much Mars in the 10th house.
So since the inner wheel is me, that doesn't move. It's
No.
the outer wheel that moves.
Right.
And so you said family was number 4, and I got nothing for me and family.
Yeah. And when you have a house that's as packed as yours, that means you're not going to have a distributed house. So there's actually another level of interpretation about what it means to have, one house so full. It depends on how everything else is spread. So sometimes it's called a bucket, with this house being the handle and these other things being the bucket, but you have these right here, which takes it off a little. So you have Neptune and Jupiter conjunct in your 7th house. Neptune can be intuition or illusion. And then you've got Jupiter, which is philosophy. Higher wisdom, it's the great expansion. So two of the energies we work with all the time in our cycle are the cycles of Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is wildly expansive. So it's an energy that just keeps going and going and going and growing and growing and growing and growing. When it gets to its negative tipping point, it becomes grandiosity, overinflation. And then Saturn is its opposing and balancing force, because Saturn is about constraint, bringing things in, structuring, defining, limiting. And so they're meant to be in a balanced dance between each other, because Saturn keeps Jupiter from going too far. Jupiter keeps Saturn from being too constricted. And so they work in this kind of energy. Jupiter is a 12-year cycle. So Jupiter will move around your chart in 12 years. I think that's about right. And then Saturn will take 28 years. So you will do 2 cycles of Jupiter while you're doing 1 cycle of Saturn.
which one is Jupiter again, Pamela?
Jupiter is this one right here.
Oh, okay.
And Saturn is this one right here. So that's kind of like one of the really big life lessons, is managing the energy of Jupiter and Saturn.
Mm.
When Jupiter transited my 7th house, I had great and wonderful things happen. It's also where Jupiter lives in my natal chart. So when my grandmother saw my chart and saw that I had Jupiter in that house, she said, men, money, and marriage. That's what you will have. Men, money, and marriage. And I have had plenty of men, money, and marriage up until Pluto transited that house. And then I had divorce, loss, into the house. So in many ways, that was a positive aspect she saw in my chart, that would make things favorable for me in certain worlds. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only other one that we didn't go through, number one, what is house number one?
Number one is your sense of identity. It is how the world sees. So first of all, your ascendant, which is whatever's right here. So you have a Taurus ascendant. That means the world will tend to see you as Taurus, which I also think is pretty hysterical, because Taurus is as grounded as can be. You have a Taurus body.
Where's that? Where is that again, Pamela? Can you go back?
It's right here. So let me get you. You know, Elsa.
Yeah. Keep going, Martha.
There you are.
There
Okay,
we go.
yours is Cancer.
What now? What? How? Tell me what you're pointing
This
to.
is, so it's right here. You see where it is? It's this horizon between the 12th and the first house. And whatever sign you have there is Cancer.
Yeah.
So Cancer tends to be sentimental and attached to family.
Really?
Yeah. It's also remember the gate of incarnation? So it's the deepest incarnation into flesh. So that's some of what you incarnated with, but it's how the world will see you.
Yet my family house is empty.
Well, it can show up elsewhere.
Huh.
You know, caretaking doesn't have to happen in your own family. Caretaking can have a much larger orientation.
Well, I was the caretaker of my family.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, you know, and you know, an empty fourth house can mean you're done. You're done with that.
Yeah.
Too bad Andrea isn't here. That was kind of really interesting what's going on.
Yeah, look at that. It's like half full.
Allison is, you're closer to this Saturn return than Allison. Allison has this, I've been, you know, worried about this for her for a while. This is Saturn transit. And here's Saturn in her natal chart. So this is the ending of a cycle. So when Saturn moves on.
Oh, when they line up. That's what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, when they line up. And remember, yours are wicked close. They're about to line up soon. And if you look back to what I sent you, I told you when your Saturn return was going to happen.
I know you did, but I'll tell you, it was like reading Greek. But this
I know, it is. That's why we're narrating. Allison also has what I have, which is this Moon-Neptune conjunct. Hers is wider. And she's got Mars kicking his butt. So, but she has also got this whole thing is taking place in her house of service. So it's no wonder that she's down with her mother for 2 months.
Yeah.
Taking care of her. Because what else would somebody do that was having a Saturn transit of the 6th house do? It's her karmic responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps me kind of understand when I might counsel her otherwise if I weren't looking at the karma involved. Like, really, you have 5 other siblings. Can't somebody else go down? You have other things you really need to be doing, getting your life started. And, you know, but then I see this and I say, well, karmically, it looks like this is what she's supposed to be doing. All right, Leslie, let's get to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we say what house number one was?
Yes, your personality.
Oh, personality. Where did I not write that? Okay, identity. You said Taurus, grounded. Got it.
Right here. Remember this, Lisa? Lisa, if you go back here.
Yeah.
And it's also your physical body and your early environment and your appearance. So, Noelle, going back to that, your early environment, Cancer, taking care of your family.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense now?
On the outside ring, on the inner ring, though, I really want to understand this, so I don't want to ask too many questions.
That's all right. You're always active, and everybody learns from it.
Okay, so if I go back, go to any one of them. Doesn't matter where. If I look at this now, if the first house is personality, I only have one thing in there.
You don't have anything there.
Not on the outside, but on the inner ring.
That's just your ascendant. That just says your ascendant is at 17 degrees Cancer. So that's
Okay.
saying the same thing as this. So everyone has their ascendant there. but you don't have anything in the first house. So basically that house is not charged for you in this lifetime.
So
Now,
my personality is not
let's
charged.
go back one. There's my first house. So look at my first house.
Yeah.
I have Uranus and Venus. Uranus is what makes me so freaking eccentric,
Oh, okay.
because it's right there in my outer world personality. It's just right there. And it's also my appearance. You know, I've always been kind of a flashy, flamboyant, wacky dresser. And I also have my Venus there. And that's my feminine nature is in my first house. So when I was young, I was very curvaceous, which is kind of a
Yeah.
Venus in the first house thing. And it's in Cancer. So my form of love is I caretake. I caretake the shit out of people that I love.
Ah. So
'Cause that's
all I
how
have
Venus
is
is.
caretaking?
So, yeah, well, no, that was how the world saw you. Remember, your ascendant is how the world sees you. So I'm a Gemini ascendant, and I think Steph is too. So the world
Let's look
sees
at Steph.
me as mercurial.
Let's see. There it is.
Oh, no, you're Cancer, Steph. You're Cancer ascendant.
Cancer and what's the other one? The
She's got a very full 12th house and Mars. She's got Mars in her. Okay, I got a text chat coming in. Oh, come here. Let me. Yes, Cancer ascending, Gemini sun. Got it. Thank you. She's using multiple devices, which is challenging. So that's what. So there's somebody else with Cancer in there, but she has Mars in her first house, which autobiographically, Steph, I'm going to say this out loud. You have had the capacity to move forcefully in your house of identity, however, in a Cancerian way.
what does that mean?
Her phone died. Oh no, her phone died. She's down to one monitor that has no camera and no mic. Okay, she agreed. So if you open the chat window, you can see. Oh, is it to me privately?
No, it's to everybody.
Okay, yep. So we're getting your stream of consciousness with that. So let's get to Leslie.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And it's so nice to look at everybody. There's Jennifer.
I'm trying to make this thing work in where I am.
And
here.
Mary Ellen was supposed to be here, so I think we ought to talk about her anyway. Now, for those of you who know, Mary Ellen has had huge responsibility taking care of family in this past 5 or 6 years. Well, I'd like you to look at where her planets are and where this particular transit as solstice is taking place. It's right here in her 4th house, which is family. And she's had Saturn here. So she's really been dealing with her karmic responsibility. This is her 3rd time through this Saturn, through this cycle, because she just had a Saturn return. So she's old enough to have finished her 2nd return. So that meant Saturn was here when she was born in the 3rd house. And then at the age of 28, it came back again. At the age of 60, it came back again. And now she's moving with it in her 4th house. So, curious. And then Jennifer, Leslie.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have a whole bunch of stuff going on. I remember talking about this Capricorn, and you and Allison share something in your chart too. I'll have to go back, and I don't remember what it is, but I remember thinking, how freaky is that? Because you've been friends forever.
I think we actually have several things in our chart that line up a lot, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
So let's just talk about, first let's start with the equinox. So you're another one where this has taken place in your 6th house. Your house of service, your house of health, your house of duty. And this is where you have this wonderful, very, very tight conjunction. And this is a fascinating conjunction because it is Mars and Venus exactly conjunct. See them right here in her 7th house, in her 6th house? So that means her masculine energy and her feminine energy are exactly the same in Capricorn.
Wait, say that again.
So your masculine energy and your feminine energy are in Capricorn at the same degree. So in some level, that means you've got an overlay of the two. Neither one of them should be very distinct. And they're in Capricorn. Remember, Capricorn is the gate of initiation. So I would speculate, looking at this as an esoteric astrologer, that you incarnated in this life to make a transition through initiation in the things that have to do with your masculine, feminine, maybe androgynous, maybe a way that they are always balanced. And then, and your sun is also in Capricorn. So you have those three things. They're actually all in conjunction. So that's a very powerful thing in your chart. You've got the sun at 9 degrees Capricorn. You've got Mars, your masculine energy, at 5 degrees Capricorn, and Venus, your feminine energy, at 5 degrees Capricorn. So your whole sense of self, which is the sun, masculine, feminine, is all Capricorn. And it's all one thing. So it's a blend. It's not unitary.
Okay.
This is kind of like one of those channeled readings. Just write it down and it will make sense to you at some point.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Because what will happen is something will happen. You go, oh, that's what she was talking about. I mean, that's just the way it goes. So you two are finishing up. I think you and Allison are on the same timetable. You're the same age, where Saturn is beginning to come. And this thing we've talked about the chapters you're wrapping up now as you're launching your daughters. As Saturn moves through and Saturn, it has been in your health house for a very long time. I could tell you exactly how long. It could be 6, 7, 8 years, because you have a real, from when you started having the lymphoma. Yeah, that's a great example of what Saturn through the health house looks like.
This looks like it's starting to move out.
Well, it is. It's at 0 degrees Capricorn. It may have a retrograde or two that causes it to keep crossing back, but it just has to get to 5 degrees of Capricorn to move into your 7th house. Of course, then you'll probably get divorced.
Goodness.
Well, it's the house of marital contracts. That's what happened to me. Saturn went into my 7th house and kicked the shit out of everything. So, yeah. Well, along with Pluto, I didn't just have Saturn. I had Saturn and Pluto. So, the big wrecking ball. You know that tarot card called the Tower?
Not really, but
very much a tower experience.
Okay, so Saturn is headed to my 7th house.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. What else?
All right. So, and that's where all the action is taking place, is in your 6th house right now. So it's going to be activating in the next couple of days. And Saturn may have already done this transit and gone retrograde and come back again. So this may not be the first pass of your Mars and Venus, and it's really funny that you work with his internal family systems, because this constellation of self, masculine and feminine all together, really at some intuitive level sounds like family constellations to me. Because you've got 3 characters in almost the same space. And I see them on this stage together. And so you also, let's just go down here in the 5th house, your house of creativity. You have this Mars, Jupiter. So Jupiter is very expansive and positive and productive. And then Mars gives us a lot of drive and energy. And it's happening here. You've got a wide, you've got the moon here, which is your old feminine nature, the lunar feminine nature. If you think of the lunar feminine nature as everything that ties us to the menstrual cycle, the moon cycle. It's just, it's the fundamentalness of female consciousness. And then you've got Neptune, which is, higher psychic truths and things like that. So, that would be the Michael stuff, would be very Neptunian. And the fact that your Jupiter has been transiting that would have made you very open to the philosophy of that and
Okay.
considering it. And Mars might just be energizing it.
Okay.
So, and you have a mind that can go deep. So third house is the mind, by the way. That's another way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hear is you have, you really probably ought to consider doing stuff with esoteric studies,
Okay.
because you have a mind that you've got your Uranus, which is the eccentric genius kind of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Pluto, who can go really deep into things.
Okay.
And they're in your third house, which is the house of communication and lower mind.
Okay.
And you know, you have in your natal 8th house, which is death and dying and other people's money, you have those 2 big planets I'm talking about, which are Jupiter and Saturn.
Okay.
So that also means that's a house that karmically is energized for you in this lifetime.
Okay.
So what it would say is there's been expansion and contraction, or, you know, breathing in and breathing out in this house of other people's money, death, dying, and inheritance.
Okay.
So that's what I know.
Well,
Can I
it's
ask a
interesting
question
because I'm taking lots of notes here. I'm not sure I get most of what you're saying. It
That's
feels like it
okay.
needs to-
But you're used to dealing with weird psychic readings. So
What does
Yeah.
it mean, Pamela, that Leslie's 12th house is empty?
it means that she doesn't, the same thing I've said every other time you've asked when the house is empty. So somebody want to tell me what it means when a house is empty?
Well, no, I mean when the 12th house is empty. That means that nothing is hidden?
Yeah. That, you know, she's not here to work out that kind of energy. The hiddenness energy, she's not here to work out.
I just want to say you're lucky, Leslie.
Well, everybody thinks that, you know, everybody else's chart is lucky, you know. But it, you know, what do you call those, Lisa? That stuff, the stuff that's left over from thoughts, behaviors, and memories from lifetime to lifetime. It starts with SK and it goes on with an A in it, and
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm blanking on the name of it. It's not samskara. It's not that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
so there's a repository of stuff that we
yes.
have to resolve. And that, you know, if you believe in reincarnation, which I do, I don't believe it in the ridiculous sense. I believe in the sense of, remember, we're that vessel and that's being filled with the soul and spirit. And that each time this vessel incarnates in the 3 lower bodies, we incarnate with a different set of experiences that we are intending to live out in this lifetime. Because you can't live them all out in one lifetime. You know, so it's a matter of focused attention. That focused attention is based on what has already been done in previous lives and what the soul's purpose is. So Leslie, you also have a Cancer ascendant, which
Okay.
means the way the people see you in the world. How many Cancer ascendants did we have?
Mm.
A whole bunch. So you are, Steph is, Leslie is, Lisa, what was your ascendant?
Taurus.
Taurus. Oh, that's right. I said you have a Taurus body. So, which is very grounded, you know, it's just like, so that makes you, the world sees you as a caretaker.
That's for sure.
Yeah. You keep trying to, but the good news is, and this goes back to what Noelle's asking about, what's good news? She doesn't have any planets in Cancer. So it just is how the world sees her, because that's what your ascendant is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily energy you have.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, go ahead.
Well, that's fun.
One of the things that, so given everything that you've been talking about, there's been so much in the 4th house,
Mm-hmm.
home, family, lands. There's been so much turmoil for me in home and family, and yet there's nothing in there anywhere.
So that means it has another dimension. So just because it's taking place in the stage set of home,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that that's what it's about karmically.
Mm.
So, if I were just to kind of weave some things together, I would say that you chose to marry and have children
Mm-hmm.
when there may have been other paths that you were drawn to,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with that Uranus and Pluto in this third house. A life of the mind might have been more attractive to you, or a life of doing big, important things that were innovative. But maybe because of some inner family systems work or some gender, acculturation, you decided to marry and have a family and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are learning lessons, but it wasn't really about that house.
I see.
It has probably a lot more to do with this powerful, this just cannot be ignored, this Venus, Mars, Sun, because it's so much about 3 identities in one. Because they're just wrapped up together. So, your sense of self, your sense of female self, your sense of masculine self is all one thing. And the fact that it's in this gate of initiation says, and I put that together with this third house with Uranus and Pluto, and I'm saying, I don't know why you got married and had kids. You probably asked that too.
That question has come into my mind every once in a while.
It was about innovation, Pamela.
Yeah, well, she's working on a new prototype. So, we could look at this, if your twins had been one boy and one girl, I could have said, they're part of, do you know the phrase family ego mass?
No.
There's a term called family ego mass when people do not differentiate out of a family system. That the family absorbs everyone and no one is allowed to have a fully defined separate identity. So that might be something that I am seeing with this Sun, Mars, and Venus. And I'm really going to encourage you to continue with this family systems work.
Yeah.
Because that might be showing up. And remember, it's between your house of service and your house of contractual relationships. So I'm just thinking that's what's up.
Okay.
So, I say these things and, pay attention, write them down, and then kind of match them to your experience. Because,
Right.
That's how we learn everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you and I have talked about doing some offline stuff on this, and I think we probably need to.
Okay. I'm totally available to do that with everyone, and wait until we do the Vedic astrology, and then we'll be able to say, well, what does that tell us? That's another level of understanding. And I ordered more books today, Lisa. I'm on it. So what is the way to think about astrology? A way to think about astrology is in the esoteric sense. I'm an esoteric astrologer, just like I'm an esoteric tarot card reader and all those other things, which means I am not interested in having a conversation about, will I get rich? Will I, have a great love life? And will I, have many children? That's not the conversation that I'm here to be in. I'm here to be in the conversation about what was the intention of your soul when your soul incarnated? So the way to look at your birth chart, the inner wheel, is to say, this is the template that my soul set as an intention. So I'm just going to talk about mine because I know that one the best. So, my mother and grandmother were astrologers, and I'm really kind of pissed that neither one of them said to me, honey, you did not choose an easy life. Honey, you got some stuff that's going to be very difficult to deal with. So because we're only seeing part of it now, and in the stuff I've sent you, let me go back one more to this. You all have for your chart something that looks like this. And what's in this, and Noelle, I remember us working with this and calculating all the different elements and the modes. What this tells you is, these are just kind of templates so you know what each house means. And in your case, what the symbols look like. But down here is, oops. backwards. Down here is where we see all the conjunctions with planets. So I have Moon square Mars. That's kind of, no, that's, oh no, that's just on.
This isn't you, right? This is
Yeah,
all of us.
Thank you. Yeah, what I just saw was Moon square Mars is also pretty intense. We have Neptune square Mercury. So square means, so there's easy energy and hard energy. Squares are hard energy. Opposition is hard energy. So opposition is the dumbbells. And this one right here is conjunction. So when things are conjunct, like Leslie's Mars and Venus, it means that the energies blend. They're not distinct energies. They reinforce each other. So like right now,
They're very close together, or they're like
close together, very close together. No, when they're opposite, that means they pull away from each other. They oppose each other.
the opposite means that on that circle they're aligned, or they're
Their
on
intention. Their intention. They're in tension. So let me go to mine and I'll show you some oppositions. Okay. So I have Sun, see my Sun in the 12th house? Square Mars in my 4th house. So a square is oppositional energy. As a child in my teenage years, I was diagnosed as having an oppositional disorder because my mother in my 4th house and my family said I did not go along or get along, and I was difficult. Difficult was the word that was used on me. Now, I also knew my own mind and had a very abusive authoritarian mother who wanted to take total control over my being, and I fought it. But that means I incarnated with this difficult Sun, Mars square.
And
So
that's
that's
because-
always, I'm always, pardon?
Is that because they're at right angles?
They're at right angles. They're at a 90-degree angle. So that's a hard kind of energy. And it also means that in much of my work life, I've been in opposition with authority figures. So, and because, remember the Sun in the 12th house, I was largely hidden to me at times. So I didn't see this happening and I didn't know, I didn't deal with it well until I got much older. So that's this one with the Sun and Mars. Now I have a number of conjunctions. I have Pluto and Saturn conjunct in my 3rd house. So Leslie, this is what I was talking about, your Pluto in that 3rd house, the same thing. It means I can go very deep and I have a very disciplined mind. I have a Saturnian mind. And they're in Leo, which means they can be kind of royal. They can go after royal things rather than mundane. They could be grandiose with that Leo sense. They could be arrogant. I certainly had gotten in a lot of trouble as a young woman being arrogant in my house of mind. And then I have this in my 5th house, which is creativity and love affairs. This is not marriage, but it's, you know, sexuality and love affairs. And Moon is, remember, the lunar nature. And then I have Neptune conjunct it, which means I had a lot of illusion around those things. It also makes me psychic. You know, that's one of the things you can look at in a chart and say somebody's psychic. But it was in my 5th house of creativity. And then the other big thing for me was Jupiter in my 7th house, which I talked about, which was the men, money, and marriage. So, you know, some of I had conjunctions, and then they had that Sun Mars square. So those have been some of the hardest things. I also have Uranus in the 1st house, which makes me eccentric. And any effort I made to try and fit in with mainstream was always defeated. Because just as a personality, I am eccentric. So wherever your Uranus energy is, there's going to be a certain kind of eccentricity, but it also is genius.
Pamela, the inner circle on these charts should always be the same, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's the outer circle that moves and creates additional influences on what's on the inner circle.
Right. It's just like when you look up in the sky and you see what's going on.
Yep. How much difference does 10 minutes in birth time make in these charts?
It only shifts the houses a little.
Okay.
10 minutes is not a lot if you figure that the whole 360 degrees is 24 hours.
Right. Okay.
So it will offset some houses.
So if you were to do this for my girls that are 3 minutes apart, their
Yeah.
inner charts would look virtually identical, wouldn't they?
Yeah. That's very curious.
Yeah, it's very curious.
We'll have to make sure we do that because it'd be very curious.
Yeah.
And then what we can do is and do what some of these outer transits are.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I still think there's something going on with the fact that you have Mars and Venus conjunct and
Yeah.
the twins. Just intuitively, that speaks to me.
Yeah.
And it's so tied to your identity.
Yeah.
And so that in this lifetime, you chose to incarnate to deal with this kind of thorny problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you created a very unique way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
As a service to humanity in the sixth house.
Well, it's just interesting because things have, if I'm supposed to be learning, the lessons are getting harder and harder, even since I've seen you last.
Well, that's that Saturn. Look at the Saturn. I mean, this
Mhm.
Saturn's kicking your butt. And it's not going to be past that Mars and Sun and Venus for a while now. You probably have a couple of years. And meanwhile, you got Pluto up here kicking as the front runner, kicking the shit out of things.
Mm-hmm.
So before Saturn started kicking up all this, you had Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to calculate what that is, but 7 or 8 years ago, and it goes back to the same health thing. So there was a time that you had both Saturn and Pluto in your health house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of thing that people would look at and say, like my friend who just had the surgery, and I'm
Mhm.
looking at those in her health house, and I'm saying, oh, I have a whole bunch more concern
Yeah.
about her surgery.
Okay.
So, we always say the stars do not compel, they just impel.
Mm-hmm.
It's information for us to look at. It's a language, it's a template to organize our experience. Because the most important thing is that we can reflect on our experience. And it doesn't actually matter what structure, as I sit in entering my seventh decade, or finishing my seventh decade, I guess, and entering the next one. It doesn't matter where we're actors on a stage, and the houses are the different sets, and the planets are the different costumes, and it doesn't matter where we do that. What matters is that life had intention,
Mm-hmm.
that the soul had a purpose when it incarnated, and that this is a map of symbolic map of maybe where the treasure was hidden. What we're here to do. So I look at my chart and I continue to come back to is, what am I here to do? So let me go back to, when we were talking about the energy medicine, Noelle asked a great question about, what did it mean when Jupiter transited your moon Neptune conjunction? So it meant that great expansive energy triggered something that can either be illusion or higher consciousness, depending on how it plays out. In and of itself, it doesn't predict those things. Because, you can, and this is the whole thing about all of us incarnate, but not at the same level. So people are working out karmic stuff at different levels of consciousness. Some people are more conscious than others. So now I forgot what I was going to show you here. Somebody help me remember. So we're talking about
Something about Saturn.
Oh, yeah, I got it. So my decision to do the Kripalu School of Ayurveda is very much in line with my Pluto Saturn. And what's come back is I'm relearning the lesson about I'm kind of a classical scholar, and I have the capacity to go really deep, and I don't work well with things that don't go really deep. I have to kind of manage my contempt and frustration. But when I come back and look at my chart, then I don't have to make them wrong. I can just say, that's not the right learning environment for you, because you have this Leo, Pluto, Saturn stuff.
Can I challenge that, by the way? Steph just wrote a very funny line. Can't relate to that at all.
Type more, Steph, so we can hear. Let's hear your voice. Type some more to all of us so we know, gee, you can't relate to that at all.
So is it that you get frustrated if it doesn't go deep enough?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I keep looking for the superstructure. Oh, the contempt. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Can you scroll to mine, the next slide down for a second? I'm just curious if I can relate to you and Steph too. So all right, I don't have Pluto and no, one back up. You're an Andrea.
I have Pluto. Oh, no, I'm on you.
Yeah, I have Pluto and what is that?
You have Pluto on the third house. That's your north node. You know,
What is
nodes, that's a lunar node. I can't really talk about that now. But the fact that you have Pluto in Capricorn, is that Capricorn? No, that is Pluto in Virgo. Because you're that much younger than I am. You know, Pluto takes a really long time to go around. So it had moved from Leo to Virgo. And
You're speaking Greek to me right now. Just
okay. Pluto is generational. So Pluto moves so slowly that everybody in a generation will have it in the same sign. So Pluto is in Leo for my whole generation. What house it's in depends on your personal chart. You and I do have those 3-hour phone calls where we go really deep because we both have Pluto in the third house.
Right.
That's a great insight.
And what's the other one that's in the third house for me?
That's your north node. Write it down and look it up. The north lunar node.
Okay,
I always reverse them. So there's the north node and the south node. One is what you came in with, and the other one is what you're here to learn. You know, one is the karmic repository that you're meant to discharge, and then one is, so they're Rahu and Ketu and Vedic astrology. So they have a very powerful role in Vedic astrology. I'm just not up to speed on it, so I can't really speak to that well tonight.
Okay.
Okay, so third house is kind of mine to have.
I thought we both had the same thing in the third house.
Well, and no wonder we have those 3-hour phone calls.
Yeah, right.
That range deep.
Right.
So Leslie, we're going to go back to you.
Well, I was just going to say I have that too.
Yes, and so
we have a 9-hour phone call if it was the 3 of us.
Yeah. So Leslie, that's one of the things that I suspect has been very frustrated for you in this period of time. That you have not been, every time you start to do that, because you've got that Uranus energy too. So I'd love to have that conversation with you because you're going to come up with all this eccentric stuff in it. You know, Noelle and I are going to go deep, and you're going to come up with this like genius moment out of it.
And your north node is in there too, but we won't talk about that now.
You know,
I guess not.
somebody could Google it while I'm on here.
I'm Googling it. I have it right now.
Okay. So what does it say?
Your life purpose is encoded in the north node.
Okay.
And south node of the moon. The lunar nodes are directly opposite each other in the chart. They aren't planets, but rather mathematical points on the chart that fall in 2 opposite zodiac signs.
So is the north the purpose? The north should be one thing and the south should be another thing.
It says the north node and south node of the moon are points that are directly opposite. Together they form the axis. They are not planetary, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to look at what it means. What does it mean? It means they represent points of imbalance. The north node represents the kinds of experiences that we must work to develop in order to work with our karma and to grow spiritually. South Node represents those experiences and qualities that come naturally. They're the ones that are overdeveloped.
Right. Okay. So South Node is kind of a karmic repository, and North Node is your purpose. So your North Node is in your third house, right? With Pluto. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, so I'm supposed to overcome my thinking.
Or use your thinking for a deeper purpose.
To grow spiritually,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, overcome doesn't mean it has to go away. It can mean take it to the higher rung on the spiral. That's a way of overcoming.
I got it.
You know, evolve.
Yeah.
We're here to evolve that. That would be my preferred.
I like
so,
that. I
yeah.
like that.
So Leslie, yours is also there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would say that you are here to evolve that kind of a Plutonian, Uranian thinking. So you best get about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the ways to balance karmic stuff in your chart is, so, you know, let's go back to you, Leslie, because you got such a great test case here, is, you know, here you've had this kick-ass sixth house, which has just been kicking your butt physically.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been doing a lot of service.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, between the health and the service, well, when we see a sixth house that's just filled with that much activity, and some of it's so long-standing, what we can say is, this is important work that you're doing, and it will pass. So work with the energy while it's here. I call that mining for gold. You know, you struck the vein, it's up in your consciousness. You really can work with it now, because it won't stay up. It will go away.
Okay.
And you know, and then it will come back around again.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking at the heaviness of Saturn and Pluto transiting your 6th and 7th house, I can say, yeah, find a way to fulfill other things in your chart, because it's not going to be an easy ride.
Right.
You know, there's nothing in the next 10 years that looks like it's going to be lighthearted and, you know, bluebirds and butterflies.
Oh, shoot.
Well, then
I was looking for a few rainbows and unicorns.
yeah. Well, one of the things that it helped me do is to stop taking it so personally.
Well, that's if that must be a lesson I'm supposed to be learning, because yeah, that's definitely in there somewhere.
Well, I think it's probably all wrapped up in that. And I would encourage you to do some Googling on, a lot of this stuff is available now. And if you find anything by Dane Rudger, that's really the best stuff. And he's got the thing on the lunar nodes. You know, what it means, Rob Hand or Dane Rudger are the two that I would go to. What does it mean to have Mars and Venus conjunct?
Okay.
You know, if you have, my mother had Saturn and Jupiter, which are the other. So Mars and Venus are a pair. Your masculine and your feminine energy are a pair of energies that are balanced. And Mars and Jupiter and Saturn are two energies that are balanced. They're meant to maintain a certain dynamic tension between them to keep either one from getting overdeveloped. So, you know, it's homeostasis or homeodynamics. It's a dance between the two. So when you incarnate with a chart where they're conjunct, my mother had Saturn and Jupiter conjunct. Now, she didn't live it out well, and as an astrologer, I'm kind of sad that she didn't. You know, she was an astrologer. Why didn't she live it out? Because it meant simultaneously she was expanding and contracting, which means the esoteric interpretation is, in this lifetime, you have a chance to have a completely new beginning.
Have what?
Do what?
A new beginning.
Oh.
You know, at a karmic level, you have incarnated to have the two simultaneously. So Leslie, I'm thinking there's something like that. Is, you know, when you just come with them, so connect. Lisa, you have that chart that is just cram-packed full in that 6th house. You know, it just, I don't know that it gets much fuller, really. And so it means that a path of service is just what you're here for. And if you were to choose anything other than that, you know, your soul will never be at rest.
Yeah, I mean, for a living, I've always done service. You know, like project management, offices, service, consulting, whatnot. Like it's just all been service.
hmm And then I love that you have this. This is where your Uranus is, and you can be pretty quirky.
Where is my Uranus?
Uranus is right next to your sun, so you're a bit of an eccentric. Okay, right here.
Yeah, people
And
say I'm crazy.
And then you've got this your Mercury, which is your communications, your lower mind. They're all right next to each other. They're all in 13, 11, and 8 is a conjunction. So just like Leslie with her Sun or Mars and her Venus together, you have Mercury, Sun, and Uranus. And this is why I like to talk to you about weird shit, because that's a signature of weird shit. A little bit eccentric, but you're an intelligence style, right? Type.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am type. So that would be kind of that Mercury right next to your sun, which is pretty mental, and my Mercury's right next to my sun. So that makes it, and it's Libra, which is this wonderfully balanced philosophical energy. Libra is very refined. So, you've got that mind and your feminine nature there, which is quite sweet. I'll talk to your husband and ask him, just how sweet it is. But it is the higher form of love. And so you're playing out all that energy right there. And you have your Pluto in the 6th house. So, it's some heaviness to having chosen a path of service. It's Pluto, we could just say puts gravitas. Wherever Pluto shows up is a place of gravitas in your chart. It kind of feels that way to me when I look at it. It's like, oh, serious.
Right. What about Saturn being in house 1?
Thank you. Great question. I'm just going to say it straight up. Saturn in the 1st house sucks. You actually have a pretty heavy chart. It's a good thing you have that Uranus next to your sun so you can be quirky. Because Saturn in the 1st house says you incarnated into a karmic burden. So this lifetime for you probably is not going to be very lighthearted. I mean, it's a good thing that you have the fun that you have and do the things that you and Mitch do and make it lighthearted, because with Saturn in the 1st house and a 6th house that's full of service, lighthearted just isn't going to be something that was natural for you. Because that means in your 1st house, in your house of personality, there's a seriousness.
Right.
Yeah, a seriousness in the sense of course, it makes you just a great project manager because it's also got that energy. Saturn is about restraint, control, defining, and it's serious. Can be humorless in the stern taskmaster sense. Because that's what Saturn is. Saturn is a stern taskmaster.
Sure.
And you're young. You're right in the middle of your Saturn cycle. So here's where Saturn is in your chart. It's in the 8th house, and it's got to come all the way over here for you to have a 2nd cycle. So that'll be when you're 58 or 9. So we'll talk then. But it is a lot to go through. So you're right in the middle of it.
Gotcha.
So what are you guys going to do to celebrate the solstice? We talked about a ritual. We talked about letting go. We talked about invoking. I just want to say again, this metaphysical concept that the energy, when it goes into the planet, so when everything dies and it goes into the planet, is when this incredible spiritual energy is so much easier to access. I think of winter nights, when we have a clear, what do we call that? A cold front come through and it's crystal clear and the stars just are brilliant. That's what the celestial spheres are like in the winter. when everything, and personally, and Lisa, you've been going along with me on this Ayurvedic thing, but seasonally, I have always liked the winter because I was thinking of you today. I was listening to Thomas and Rajas and Satvik, and the winter is Satvik time for me. I get to pull in and be contemplative, and as soon as spring comes, the Rajas nature of me and the Raja nature of the world doesn't allow me to pull in again until the fall. So as soon as spring comes, I am pulled outward into the world. I may get a month during the Perseids in August, and when Sirius is so prevalent as a star, to be contemplative, usually around Labor Day weekend. But then it doesn't come again to the season we're in now, which is Capricorn, and I can, I will do my best to retreat over the next 2 months. So that's another rhythm to begin to know about yourself. Because this rhythm has been with me all my life.
And to know what to do during those times.
Right.
So if the springtime is so rajasic for you, then maybe it's time to pull in or give yourself some me time during that time.
Because I can get very overexpanded. That's when my Jupiter nature in the 7th house can really get me overexpanded. And my Uranus in the 1st house can get me to be flighty and eccentric, and I can get carried away. So, those are energies that I know. So stay tuned, folks. That will be in future classes when we talk about some of these Ayurvedic concepts.
Okay.
Anybody have other thoughts? I don't know what time it is. Are we getting close to wrap-up time?
It's almost 9. I just want to say, Pamela, this is the second, a couple of times that we've talked about charts and the like, but it made so much more sense to me tonight.
Well, it's layering, Noelle. It's,
Yeah.
layering. It's a symbolic language. So first you have to learn the symbolic code.
Yeah.
And then you have to apply the code to some real world situations so that you can be an experiential learner. And that's why working with your own chart, just like tarot cards, remember all the readings that you did with your own self, teaching yourself what the cards mean.
Yep. Well, I just want to say it also was very helpful to listen to you go through other people's charts and hear their own perspective of it. That was very helpful.
So one task with your Pluto in the 3rd house, I'm going to suggest it for you and Leslie. I'm going to suggest that we do all the transits and you do what I call an astrological autobiography, but really only working with the outer planets because those are the big energies, and see what life events. So once again, like a tarot spread, this is how you'll teach yourself what the planetary energies have meant in your life. So when I did the Jupiter transits, so Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the whole natal chart. The events that were triggers in my chart always matched relationship issues for me. So Jupiter for me was about relationship. Endings, beginnings, and all of that. That doesn't mean that's what it's for everyone. Jupiter is in my 7th house, so that's a reason why it would be. Jupiter's also in Sagittarius. That's a reason why it would be. But when you get enough pieces together, and I'm saying this to the Pluto in the 3rd house people, then you'll begin to see your own template.
So if I can I translate what you just said? Could you go to my chart for a
Please
second?
do.
Yeah.
I think I understand, Leslie. So let me see if I can get it.
Yeah.
Go to my chart. If I say that, okay, Pluto's in my 3rd house.
Yep.
So it's in my house of thought,
Mm-hmm.
of thinking, right? And I also have that little bonus of the
North node. Yep.
North node, which is to explore it, right? Or to that's why I'm here. It's part of my sole purpose is to think about things. So what you're saying is, as I go around the outer circle, wherever Pluto arrives, it is as it intersects. Like right now, it's aligned with. I think that's not Saturn. What is that one?
Saturn. It's Saturn. So
Saturn.
You Pluto
So thinking, what is Saturn again?
Okay, remember it's what I have natally. I have it natally Pluto Saturn conjunct, which means to go deep in that very disciplined, stern taskmaster that I talked
Okay.
about Lisa in the
So
first.
because Pluto is lined up with Saturn right now, I could be very task oriented in my mind.
You could be very intense. We're just going to call it intense in
Got
a
it.
in a highly reflective way, but a reflection that's around the lessons that I have learned.
Okay, so now I'm going to share
Saturn's
something.
about-
I'll
Saturn's
share a
about-
story,
yeah.
share the truth. For the
Okay.
first time in my career, now I'm codifying what I've been doing for the last 35 years in this period of time.
Well, that's powerful because remember, it's in your 7th house,
Yeah,
which is the house of contracts.
right.
So it will be important for you to build a contractual relationship around whatever the body of work that comes out of this is.
Oh, interesting, because just today I received the contract that said that everything I create was for work for hire, and I kind of went, no, this is my work. You don't get to own it. So interesting.
Yeah, that's totally what's going on there.
And how long, and Saturn,
Oh,
Pluto
Pluto's
was
going to
there.
be there. Pluto's going to be there. It will move. Right now, it's an exact conjunct, and
Yeah.
it will remain in your 7th house for 10 or more years. But it will move away from Saturn over the next few years.
So as it moves into the next house, the 8th house,
8th house.
as it comes in alignment, and Leslie, I'm hoping this is helping you, as it comes in alignment with the Venus,
Venus,
right?
yeah.
Then intensity will come up around
Your
my
feminine
nature.
identity, your feminine nature. And then you will have the exact conjunction of the Persephone mystery. So when Pluto is conjunct your Venus, you will have another chance to live the Persephone mystery. Because
Which part of it? The part where I'm in hell, or the part where I'm not?
where you're being taken into hell, where you are the maiden being taken into hell.
Ugh. That's about 10 years from now, though, right?
Yeah, at least.
Okay.
When we get the transits, you can see where it actually is.
And when you say get the transits, you mean,
I can recalculate and send it to you, and then you just have to take all the dates and match them up.
okay. And then just for my own sake, I don't think this is going to happen in my lifetime because Pluto is going to move so slowly. But if Pluto were to move around to my 12th house and line up with Mars, is that Mars?
That's pretty explosive.
That would be an explosive period of
It's
time.
pretty explosive. Mars, it's combustion.
Okay. But it would be combustible thought, right?
Combustible intensity. It's in your 12th house, so it means it might be largely hidden.
So it'd be all internal. So okay. Is that going to happen in my lifetime? I mean, how long would it take for it to go all the way over there?
Half of 104 years.
Yeah, so probably not. Unless I live to be 125. Yeah, so, or 100 and, well, I could actually, I could. Okay, so that helps. Did that help you,
Look
Leslie?
at how far it's moved. If you want to gauge, here's where it was at birth, and here's where it is now. And you're 57.
7. Yeah,
So that tells you how far it went in nearly 60 years.
that's good. So I'll never have that combustion. That's good. I'm glad.
Is that everybody's birth? Is house number 3? How do you know where birth was?
The inner circle. The inner circle was my birth, the place where it was when I was born.
Born here. It was in her 3rd house here.
Oh, got it.
Yours is in your,
Right.
yours is in, Pluto's in your 6th house with everything else.
Right. Like, I'll give you 3 guesses.
Yeah. So, not much else going on.
We never talked about this guy up here, and you can't see my, Chiron? Is that Chiron?
Chiron's really cool. It's an asteroid, and it is right over here. It's right next to your moon. And at 52, you have a Chiron return. So that might be one of the next big events for you. Chiron is called the wounded healer. Chiron was a centaur, And he was also known for being a healer. So you want to Google the myth of Chiron to understand what the Chiron return is. And when we reach our Chiron return, I think it's 52 for most people, we are ready to take our work into the world, our healing work into the world, because we do it from a place of the wounded healer, which is the safest, most non-intrusive way to heal, because it maintains the power relationship as equal. So what I bring to you comes from my experience in being wounded. And so it's that kind of, instead of coming from a one-up, I'm coming to you from my experiences as the guru or the knower, but I'm coming from my own woundedness, which means up until 52, we're supposed to keep processing our stuff.
Yeah.
So we have something to heal from. If what we have is unconscious and not reflected upon, then we really have no healing to offer.
So can I ask a question?
What if I said no?
Does that mean it takes 52 years for Chiron to go around the circle?
Yes.
Okay.
So that means
Pamela,
that Chiron is back to where it was when you were born.
So I'm realizing now that is the outer circle going clockwise and the inner circle staying still, or the other way around?
Inner circle stays still, and the
Yeah.
outer circle goes counterclockwise.
Okay, so then has Lisa seen a return in that they haven't been lined up yet?
No, she's too young.
Oh, I get it.
You're what, 46?
Yes.
Yeah. So she's coming up, and by the time she finishes her rolfing, and has pulled together this whole yoga therapy, yoga rolfing, and whatever else the components are going to be part of it, she will be perfectly positioned to do her wounded healer.
Wow.
I think that's brilliant, Lisa.
Yeah, I will be 47.
Okay. And Steph, I have to look at how old Steph is. Well, I have to see who's trying. I suspect it's Steph. Same here, 45. Okay, so your Chiron return is 5 years away. Let's see, your Chiron return. So where is your Chiron return going to place? So your Chiron's in Aries, Steph, and it's in the 9th house. So, this is fabulous. So what is the book you just wrote? I don't think Lisa was on. And what is it that you're launching as a wounded healer? You're going to have to type this. We got to get you some technology. Okay, so she just wrote a book called The Art of Forgiveness. For those of you on the call in the beginning, it was about her experience of abuse and how to transcend that experience and bring it to healing. So, and now since her corporate job separated her, and we knew it was only a matter of time and it was not a good fit to start with, it was wishful thinking, so that she wouldn't have to be on her own. She's getting really positioned for this Chiron return. And I can actually give you the specific date for it when I get back to it. And I'll make a commitment to do that over the weekend, because I got to finish up 3 client days. Launching a business to help light workers market themselves and become visible to those that are born to serve. Oh, please do. I'll be happy to. Let's see when that Chiron return is for actual. Yeah. Because it's one of the first things I remember coming to, and it helped me, because as you know, pretty much the whole modality I work with is wounded healer, that I come from my own experience. And people who don't understand that as a way of being in the world sometimes judge it as egocentric, but it's not. It's rooted in the humility of all I have to serve with is my own healing, my own wounding, first of all, and the degree to which any of that wounding has healed.
What's the circle with the X in it? I can't find that anywhere.
That is the Earth. Thank you. I love that you guys are so bright and curious and interested. It's the Earth, so it's always should be opposite your sun. Why is that not?
Mine's not either.
Part of fortune is part of fortune. Part of fortune. You want to Google part of fortune.
Should always be opposite.
No, part of fortune has its own rotational cycle. There's a thing that it is, but it's called a part of fortune.
What is part of fortune?
Yeah. It's one of those, you know, a lot of people work with asteroids, the lunar nodes, the part of fortune. They're all, astrology is a huge field. It's just absolutely huge. And I cut down my library to be about a third of what it once was. But there were just so many dimensions to explore that at some point, you know, I had to narrow my focus. But there are people who work with the part of fortune. It's just not anything I know much about.
So what is the south node? Which one's that? Which symbol?
Well, the south node is the upside down one. So it is, I may not have it on the chart. Yeah, here. So it's 180 degrees from wherever your north node is. So if you're, so Steph's north node is at 27 degrees Capricorn. So this would, Steph, so it'd be about that gate of initiation. You know, in this lifetime, part of what you came here to do was the initiation, which is, you know, refining the lower vessel. And so that you can transcend. So that would mean that your karmic stuff, whatever it was that you guys read that the south node is, the south node is what has to be dealt with. And mine are in Taurus and Scorpio. And they're pretty hard because yours was in Capricorn, Cancer. So it's right here. This is the north node. So yes. Hers will be in at 27 degrees Cancer, which will put it in her first house, right next to her Mars.
So it's not on here.
It's not on here, no.
And what I read, Pamela, was that your south node is what you've overlearned that you're very, very good at.
So, you know, that would be her overlearning of caretaking, her overlearning sensitive withdrawal, the Cancerian crawling into the shell when wounded. Fearfulness, Cancer is fairly fearful. So that would be overlearned, and the fact that it's conjunct your Mars would mean that there's some masculine energy that's necessary to deal with that.
Oh. So, hey, Pamela, can you go to my chart for a second? Because I think that's pretty interesting. Or maybe that's very interesting here as well on Stephanie's. That her, wait, you can go back to Stephanie or stay on me, it doesn't matter. That the north node is directly opposite of her north node on the outer ring. And that's the same with mine.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that, it's not directly opposite, because the one you're looking at is at 17 degrees Leo on the outer ring. And opposite would be here in Cancer. Whoops. So your north node is in Aquarius. So that means, in your case, they are almost opposite in this transiting north node. So north node in Aquarius, so your incarnational purpose is the north node. And Aquarius is humanitarian. It is the most detached form of love, the humanitarian form of love. It's non-personal. So that's what you're here to learn. And now Aquarius, what's 180 degrees from Aquarius?
The fourth house.
No. Oh, Leo and Aquarius. I tell you, I'm really tired. So it's Leo. So what you have overdone, what's karmically done, is the arrogance of Leo. Leo is the royal house, and people with strong Leo personalities have a pretty strong ego. Some of the teachers I've worked with who were able to bring big work into the world had Leo sons. And they just had the selfhood and the kind of entitlement and nobility that allowed them to bring forth an important. Jacqueline Small was one of them. Marion Woodman was another one. And in their Leo regal bearing, they were able to move forward with some work that was hard to launch.
So can I make a quick request?
Yeah.
Can I quickly go through each of the charts and say what the soul purpose for each one is? That was beautiful what you just did.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a complex thing. I don't, I can just speak to what the tendencies are.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's go. So your soul's purpose is in the North Node. Your North Node is in Virgo. Virgo is the Vestal Virgin. Virgo is actually a mental quality. And it is very precise in the sense of there is a rightness to order.
Gee, isn't that surprising? Okay.
So that means what's overdone is Pisces. So the Christ era was the Piscean era. There's a kind of Piscean devotionalism that is I can't think of good words right now, sappy or immature or undeveloped or sentimental. And Piscean gets lost in the watery depths. Pisces has no boundaries, so things remain very fluid, but not in a productive fluid way, in a way that they can't condense. So your life purpose, you're right, if I talk it out, it comes together, is to concretize, bring into form. That has been watery.
And what's yours?
What's mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I am here to deal with the desire nature. I have the other side. So I have Leo and Aquarius. So, I mean, I have Taurus and Scorpio. So I'm here to learn about Taurus. And there's an esoteric meaning of Taurus that has to do with the single vision. Some people refer to it as the Ajna center, but it is the single eye. And that is a form of vision. What I have overdone and what has been very hard for me to let go in this lifetime, and my guru beat me up all the time for it, is my desire nature. It's no surprise that I'm an addict of just about every kind, because my south node was Scorpio. And Scorpio is the intensest desire nature. Taurus is the most physical. So the way the signs work is, they're earth, air, water, fire. And the first time they occur, and let me go back to this chart because it'll make more sense. So see Aries here, it's cardinal fire. It is the most raw form of fire because it's the purest, it's the most primitive, it's the most fundamental form of fire. Taurus, next, is the most earth form of earth. It's everything we think of earth. I love to dig in the dirt. I love, to be grounded, all of that. That's the physicality of Taurus. Then we get to Gemini. Gemini is the most air of air. So it's flighty, it's communicative, it's mental, it's all those things. Cancer is the most water of water. So then we recapitulate. So now Leo is fire, but is one level of refinement above Aries. So it's more subtle than Aries. And then we get to Virgo, which is earth, so it's concretization, but it's more subtle than Taurus. You're probably not going to build a rock and dirt garden like I did 2 weeks ago because my neighbor had dirt and rocks. That's so Taurus. I'm out there at 9 o'clock in the morning and nearly my pajamas doing it. So Virgo is the next level up of refinement of that. Libra is very lovely air. And I think you have all those planets in that, Lisa, right?
Yes.
And so it's balanced, harmonious, and all those things. And then Scorpio is the next level of water. So it's still watery, but it is, it's not in its shell like the crab. So then we get to the third level of fire. Now, these are the esoteric cycles. So, you know, there's actually 3 cycles of this, just like the tarot cards, we could do 3 rows of 7. They developmentally are higher on the spiral. So now we get to Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is fire. So, and it is fire of the philosophy, fire of the arrow of the initiative, the initiate being shot out. It's that kind of fire of intention. Whereas Aries is the fire of aggression. So that's the differentiation. Capricorn is earth. So, but it's earth in the sense of the initiation out of Cancer into redeemed earth. Light brought back into earth. Light brought, you know, it's the lower vessel being filled with light. That's what earth of Capricorn is. Then Aquarius is, it's air. So it takes that Gemini, Libra, and now it is much more detached and humanitarian. And then we get to Pisces, which is the fluid depths of intuition and psychic experience. But the downside of Pisces is you can get lost.
Yeah.
People who have a lot of Pisces planets in their chart really are not very grounded.
Yeah.
And we can't get them to define anything. I know one woman, and she's been part of the Tibetan community forever. And if you went to her house, she had rabbits and you know, cats and birds, and the house was kind of a mess and everything. And so my Virgo was just like screaming. But she lives in a very fluid space. And that's where she is, and you know, basically has no boundaries. So that's what you're done with. So we have, did we do Steph? We did Steph on that, right? Steph, you've got your incarnate. Oh, okay. So yeah, you're here to do that initiate thing because your North Node is Capricorn and your South Node is Cancer. We did talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Lisa's left.
Okay. And Leslie. Or maybe I did Leslie today. So Lisa, you are, yeah, we did talk about that humanitarian. The fact it's kind of like your Chiron. You're going to be called to do humanitarian things. And what you're letting go of is Leo. And we talked about that. And then Leslie, that's here. Yeah, do the initiative thing. Sounds so easy. Yeah. Go to that website that I listed. I really encourage you, and Noelle too, you check on that link, and Leslie, absolutely for you. It's at the bottom of the gate of initiation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's got everything about it you ever wanted to know, and more that you don't want to know. Leslie, so yeah, so your North Node is down here in Leo. So you're the opposite of Lisa, and that's what's always so interesting. So what Lisa's here to let go of, you're here to live out. So you're here to live out Leo.
Okay.
Which means, remember I said about the 2 women who were able to bring a body of work out into the world? And it just happens to be right in that 3rd house. So my intuitive sense is you are meant to write, create, communicate, construct a innovative, deep body of work. And then you will have the force of presence, that's your Leo North Node, to bring it into the world.
Okay.
In order to do that, you have to let go of what has already been too much, which is Aquarius, the detached, selfless humanitarian. Because you won't be able to bring that body of work forth from that stance.
Okay, that makes some sense actually.
What does
Yeah.
that mean for Leslie when she's got the two north nodes lined up like that?
Yeah, that would be great to look up. What is it? It's a node return. So that's what it's called. It's called a lunar node return. So you can look it up,
Mm.
what it says.
Okay.
As I said, it's a whole body of work unto itself. And there are people, certainly in Vedic astrology, it has very big significance. These are the lunar mansions, and they're very, very big.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a whole book on it, the Nashiktras. And so there's a lot about that in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Well, what
right.
a rich discussion. Thank you all. This is so much fun to have people to play with. So I want you to make a commitment that you're going to do some kind of ritual between now and 11:28 tomorrow morning to, to bring in the light, let go. This is the celebration that somehow got screwed up and is now on the 25th. It actually is supposed to be now because it is the cycle we've lived with. So this is one of our 4 cardinal points in the year when we are in transition. So it's important to mark the transition with ritual. So we can do that. And there's nothing more fun for me than working with live data and stories and people and reflections and all of that. So you guys give me such a great opportunity to play, and I really appreciate for it. And I promise that, well, you probably know this about me now, is there's always going to be another chapter. And now that you know that I have Uranus in the first house and, Pluto and Saturn conjunct in the third house, it might make a little more sense of why this is my way of life. This is what I live and breathed on.
Yeah.
And Lisa said to me, a couple weeks ago, well, make sure you have some fun. Remember that, Lisa?
Well, because you were working so much.
Yeah, but that's my fun.
That is your fun. That's what I was just going to say. It's your fun to dig deep.
I know. And it took me, well on, and this is where I'd love to do more esoteric astrology with people younger so that they can make sense of, and that's why, Leslie, it'd be great to see your daughter's charts and do that, because
Yeah, it would be.
really start making sense of, what are the building blocks that we incarnated with, and what might be some ways to, with more ease, bring them forth rather than stumbling and struggling.
Yep.
I want to say too, Pamela, I have one quick question, and then I want to tell you what I was going to say. And it builds on what you were just saying. Does the actual location change things? Like if you're
It does. There's a whole thing called astrocartography.
Okay.
It's a really, it's a science unto itself. And, there's some Vedic, another form of it in Vedic, in that, where you live on the planet does, like we have one person here who is from the Southern Hemisphere, Steph's chart from Perth. So, so astrocartography is you can have a chart run to see the places that you should live. And it's not just one place. It's like, well, if you lived in this, band of latitude and longitude, you would be maximizing this part of your chart. And if you were someone else, you'd be, because I remember doing that at one point in time, and actually Arizona was good for me at the time that I lived there. But being in New England is better for me long term from an astrocartography standpoint.
Well, the main reason why I ask is because Allison and I were born in the same hospital, but our geographic locations are different. I'm not sure how that happened, but
okay,
they're not that far away.
Okay.
So I don't know if it would make any difference.
Good notice.
But what I was going to say is, what I also want to mention to you is that the first time we did this, I will confess I was sort of resistant to it.
I think I remember that.
And now I've embraced it, and I want you to know that you've had a huge impact on the way that I look at things.
Well, thank you.
In terms of my own place in the world and what's happening, it makes total sense to me now. Whereas before I just didn't want it to be true.
I remember that whole phase. And it's a phase I closely identify with. It's kind of what.
Of course. We both have those things in the second house. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Third house. Well, it's also,
Third house.
you know,
Thank you.
sometimes, you know,
Who's
there's
the
that whole
person here?
pardon?
The third house. You just corrected me. That's good.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of people who just want to live in the love and light. Well, it should be love and light, love and light. Well, karmically, we didn't come here for love and light. And
Yeah.
you know, what we can look at a chart, you know, like I've probably said most strongly to Leslie in tonight's session, out of anyone here, is, you know, or Lisa. I think Leslie and Lisa, you both have charts that are pretty karmically intense.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a heaviness to your chart. I don't mean heaviness in ominous. I mean it in clear purposefulness. Like this is not dispersed energy that's kind of random, or, you know, you could do this or you could do this, or maybe you could do this or you could do this. Some people have a chart like that. Sometimes I look at a chart and they're not usually the people I work with because there's no real connection. They have nice charts. So they incarnated in this lifetime for a nice lifetime. But I'm not going to run into them in the circles that I'm in, because the circles I'm in are people who life has kind of brought them to a need to be more conscious, simply because being unconscious was beating them up terribly. So I think that's, so the information is not as equally as important to everyone. You know, and in the terms of soul development, not everybody's on the same cycle. Right. You know, and that was something that I have really wrestled with in my life, because I, like so many liberals, want to be egalitarian, and I want to say we're all equal and we all this and all that. Well, karmically, that's not true. There are some, you know, we talk about old souls and young souls. So, you know, a young soul is working through, you know, the first couple of turns of the wheel, you know, like the Buddhist wheel of life, you know, the incarnational cycle. People aren't at the same level because they you know, their souls are more or less developed. So I'm glad that we have so many old souls hanging out together and having these conversations, because otherwise
old souls that have some challenges to deal with.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be boring.
I know, and I'm glad a whole bunch of you are coming up on kind of a really significant life transition, and it matters to me to be kind of enough down the road ahead of it that I can say, okay, here's what I wish I had done a better job with during my Saturn return. You know, here's some of the ways that I didn't use the information as skillfully. And so it was a whole bunch more painful.
And I want to add to that, Pamela, that's exactly what I was talking about. You told me a year ago that I was going to go through some shit. And I said, no, I don't want to. And I have. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I can say, yeah, okay, it wasn't so bad. But it was definitely not something I was welcoming coming my way.
Yeah, you know, you, Denise, and I have another client who's been my client for many years, one of my corporate clients, and are all at the same place with that Saturn return. And, you know, and it's been kicking everybody's butt. And this woman just, you know, had her husband walk. She went through a very difficult career thing for a couple of years, and we thought that was kind of her stuff. And then one day her husband just walked in and said, I don't want to be married anymore. And she's still in shock. That was about 6 months ago, and she never saw it coming, and she was not prepared for it. But she also has not been able to share it with anyone in her work world, because it's the source of such great shame for her. So she's South American and you know, has very strong pride. But you know, when I see that, when I see a number of people I know in the same life cycle, and then I can, you know, kind of bring some wisdom to it.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
I will
really getting very late.
I still do not have my BioWell machine yet. I have communicated with them, so saying, you know, bad business practice, 60 days. But stay tuned, because I'm about to have a couple weeks off. I got to stack.
Can't wait to hear how it goes.
That means January will be interesting.
Sure will.
Oh.
But Lisa, when are you going to Boulder?
I
Tell
am.
everybody what you're doing so they know, because they wouldn't know.
Yeah, yeah. And then I have to go. I'm gonna fall asleep sitting up. The well, I have resigned my job and I'm gonna go to Rolfing School in Boulder, Colorado.
Yay.
Hooray!
That's
That's
great.
Exciting.
Yeah, so class starts January 8th.
And tell them about what kind of commitment it is.
So it's basically about a year. It's I'm done in November, so it's 6 weeks, 3 times in 2018
So she goes to be in residence for 6 weeks,
Wow.
for 3 times.
3 times. So, that means negotiating with your partner and,
Wow.
doing things like that. So it's not, it's like the chicken and the egg talking about breakfast, chicken and the pig talking about breakfast. For one, it's a
Right.
contribution. For the other one, it's
Committed.
yeah, I'm all in.
Right.
So you're the pig in this conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do that, and I just look at myself as I'm very fortunate, who gets to go to Boulder and live there for 6 weeks at a time, 3 times,
How lovely is that?
Yeah.
That's nice.
That's great.
So, this is all about visioning. That's a lot of what we've been talking about. I've had the privilege of knowing Lisa through leadership and then into this period of time and just watching that vision unfold, from little nuances of nudges and suggestions, and then it blossoming into a full vision. So I think that's pretty exciting.
That
I
sounds
love when
great.
that happens. All right.
Great.
Ladies. Fabulous.
Thank
Thank you, Pamela. Happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you too.
Nice.
And I will get stuff to you when I get to the weekend, and I remember all the things that I said I got to do. I have 2 more client days, and it's kicking my butt. I'm in
Enjoy them, Pamela.
Yeah, so too bad I go. Oh, she just bought a webcam. Steph is not going to be offline again.
That's great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, I'm going to.